afternoon broadcast with the latest coming in on Israel as tensions have been on the rise between Israel and Syria, with Israeli aircraft striking Syrian military targets hours after thwarting an infiltration attempt. In a rare statement, Israel has acknowledged the strikes in neighboring Syria, saying that the targets included observation posts, intelligence collection systems, and even anti-aircraft artillery facilities in Syrian army bases in Quneitra. Israel also said that they hold the Syrian regime responsible for this attack. In a statement, the defense forces said, and I quote, "The IDF holds the Syrian government responsible for all activities on Syrian soil and will continue operating with determination against any violation of Israeli sovereignty." Now, Syrian state media also has acknowledged these strikes, reporting unspecified material damage at military outposts near Damascus. This comes after the Israeli Defense Forces fired upon a group of 4 militants. They were seen laying explosives along the border near Golan Heights. All of these militants were killed in the Israeli attack. Earlier, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday that Israel had thwarted an attempted sabotage on the Syrian front. Netanyahu also reiterated that the country would continue to harm all those who try to harm us.
גם לא נחים לרגע בנושא הביטחון. אתם ראיתם שסיכלנו, צה"ל סיכל ניסיון של חבלה בחזית הסורית. פעלנו אתמול מול רצועת עזה, מול ירי סוררים, וכמובן העניין עם לבנון עדיין באוויר. אנחנו נפגע בכל מי שמנסה לפגוע בנו ובכל מי שפוגע בנו. העיקרון הזה תקף.
Tensions have escalated between the two neighboring countries, especially along Israel's northern frontier. There has been heightened tensions ever since an Israeli airstrike killed a Hezbollah fighter in Syria 2 weeks ago. And for these latest tensions, let's quickly get in a perspective from our guest, Arsen Ostrowski, who's an international human rights lawyer and a Middle East expert. He's joining me live from Tel Aviv at this hour. Arsen, a very warm welcome to you. Now, after 40 years of calm, the Israel-Syrian frontier has heated up in recent years. How do you view the latest string of heightened tensions along Israel's northern frontiers?
Look, I think there's one reason specifically for the recent heightened tensions, and that has to do with Iran. Iran is continuing to try and have a foothold in Syria, as well as, it should be noted, in Lebanon as well. The attacks coming from Lebanon are coming primarily from Hezbollah, which is an Iranian-backed terror group. We know that Iran is also one of the main, if not the main, backers of the Assad regime in Syria. So they have had forces there openly. They've had forces there and bases for some time. We know that Iran is fighting a war, whether by proxy or not, through other means against Israel, through a number of these groups and forces and through these different bases. We know that at the moment Iran is going through a very difficult economic situation, and likewise with in Lebanon as well with Hezbollah. So I believe at the end of the day, whatever action is happening on Israel's northern border, whether that be with Syria or Lebanon, there is one primary reason for that, and that is the Iranian regime that is pulling the strings.
Right. What's interesting is that the Israeli army has not mentioned Iran so far, but, Israel rarely acknowledges specific strikes on Syrian soil when the targets are Iranian weapons, stores or shipments. But this time, the Israeli army has categorically stated its targets. What do you make of this rare statement by the Israeli army?
Look, I think there is a number of reasons for when Israel does or openly acknowledge that they made a strike in response to a terror attack, and other times when they do not. That could be done for a number of operational reasons, for example, in order not to perhaps embarrass Hezbollah as an example and encourage them to make a greater strike. I mean, the border on the north has been despite even an increase in tensions recently in the last number of weeks, it has been relatively, and I use the word relatively, stable. So I don't think it's in either Israel's interest nor nor our neighbors in the north to have a much more intense battle. But either side, both sides need to confront these steps and show that they're taking action without, at the same time, taking it too far and escalating it.
Right. Arsen, last but not least, how crucial is the role played by Syria's government when it comes to aiding the Hezbollah and even Iran?
Look, I think it's Iran that is the one that is aiding Syria, not so much other way around. But Iran is using both Syria and Lebanon as bases in which to attack Israel, as they're doing so by proxy, whether that be through Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon or through different bases in Syria. But, at the end of the day, those are key strategic footholds for Iran, which is continuing to try and increase the foothold in the